doing something a little unusual. I am at my church. I just gave a sermon and I wanted to give you a chance to also hear it. So the sermon is about God's standard time and the fact that God is never late. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe. We've passed 1,000, which is really awesome. Comment, like. Thank you to anyone who's commented before in the past, all of you. Thank you all. Okay, let's get started. Lord, we know that there is no one else for us other than you, Lord God. You alone satisfy, Lord God. You alone are what we desire, Lord. Lord, we submit this time into your holy hands, Lord. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Can we all be seated? Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
So I want to start off by asking all of you a few questions, and I want a response. So what age should you finish college? What age do you guys think you should finish college? 21. Some ambitious people here. Okay, any other ages here? What age did you finish? Is 20, is 30 okay? No? 30 is okay, yeah. Abigail says it's okay. When should you start your career? What age should you be when you start your full-time job? When you're not in college. When should your first child be born? Before 30? Okay. 25, okay. Okay, so doctors may also say 25. Apparently after 35, you know, it's like an old pregnancy, whatever. But there's all these different ages and times that we have been told and studies have been told to do certain things in our lives. And we all have an idea of how things should work out and how timing should work out as well. And my topic for today is God's time zone. Amen. So, I actually want to start off by telling you a little story. Have any of you watched the television show The Good Doctor before? There's one person. So there is this main character protagonist who has autism spectrum disorder. So he is on the high functioning end of that. And he's a doctor and he comes in for his first day of work and he's late. And his supervisors say to him, "You're late, you can't be late, this is your job." And his response is, "I wasn't late, my bus was late. I went to my bus on time, I did everything correctly, I set my timers, and the bus was late, I am not late." So sometimes the way that we view our world and the way we view things may be contrary to what is traditionally the way that we see things. And I want to challenge all of you today to open up and look at the way that we see time a little bit differently. So the first problem that I've noticed, or I feel like I even struggle with, is when you're operating in God's standard time, one thing we struggle with is we rush for what we desire. And rushing for what we desire can lead to disobedience. And we can see the negative fruits of that disobedience in our life. And I wanted to start off by showing you a video, just 30 seconds, of something called the marshmallow experiment. Have any of you guys heard of the marshmallow experiment before? Oh, you guys heard of it. Okay. So we're going to show you a quick 30 seconds if that can work. Yeah, the way that this video crafted it was spenders versus savers, but basically the children are given a chance to have one marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows later. So we'll watch 30 seconds of this, if it can work. Is it working? No? Okay, it's not working. Okay, but basically the way this works, and there's really cute kids that you see on the screen, and they basically are offered 1 marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows later. And let me take a poll of the kids here right now. Would you rather have 1 marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows later? You want 1? Okay. Do you want 1 or, you already know what happens. What about you guys? Do you want 1 or 2?
They said 1.
They said altogether 1? Okay. So you see these kids and they're thinking, you know, marshmallow, I want more marshmallows. Generally you want more of something that you like. And you'll see them in the video and they're like squeamish, they don't know what to do, they can't wait, they want both marshmallows right now. And what ended up happening was they did a study and they found out that the students, The children who were able to wait for the second marshmallow, they actually ended up succeeding farther on in life. They got higher SAT scores, and I guess you can see for a second the kids.
Are we born to save or spend? This is the marshmallow teller. Eat now or wait and get more.
Okay, so we can stop it there. So you're seeing all these kids, they're wondering, should I wait? Should I, wait for this marshmallow? Should I just have it right now? And we see that there are different types of kids, those who can wait and those who can't wait. And they did research studies on these students. I'm a teacher, so I keep thinking of students, but they did studies on these children, and the children who were able to wait, prolong their gratification, ended up having higher SAT scores, ended up going to better colleges and succeeding more in life, all because they were able to wait. And I'm not saying that operating God's time zone always means that it takes longer, but it means trusting in God and whatever time He has for you, and trusting that His ways for you are better than whatever you have planned for yourself. And when we look at the Bible, we can also see examples of this. So again, we rush for what we desire, and then this leads to disobedience. And we can see this in the lives of Jacob and Esau as well. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so when we look at the story of Jacob and Esau, we rush, and so did Jacob. He wanted the birthright. I'm going to provide a little bit of background story in them, but we know of the story of two brothers, Jacob and Esau. Jacob was born second to Esau, and because of that, in the way that the Bible times worked, he was not supposed to receive the birthright blessing. But he wanted this, and his mother also wanted him to have it. So he deceived his father in order to receive this blessing. So in Genesis 27:24, it reads, "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. So in that moment where he says "I am" to his father's request, he is using his own means, his own methods to achieve what he wants in his life, rather than waiting on whatever it is that God has in mind for him. We see over here in Genesis 25:23, the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two people from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other. The older will serve the younger." And in this verse, we see something that was so amazing to me when I first read it. Not first read it, but when I read it again and realized what it meant. But what we see here is, in Genesis 25, before the passage we just read, God had already made a promise over Jacob's life. He was already going to be served by the older brother. That provision, that promise was already set in his life, but he rushed for what God had promised him. So sometimes in our lives, God promises each and every one of us something amazing, something incredible, and it is ours. We are promised it, but we rush to have whatever it is that God wanted to give us. I wonder how different Jacob's life would have been if he did not rush for what God had in mind for him. There was a consequence for his disobedience, and this was taken from the Life Application Study Bible, but because he disobeyed, he never saw his mother again. His brother wanted to kill him. He was deceived by his uncle Laban. His family was torn by strife. Esau became the founder of an enemy nation, and he was exiled from his family for many years. He was already given this incredible, amazing promise from God, but because he disobeyed, he experienced the fruits of disobedience in his life. Next, we see that we are persuaded by the wrong people. And Jacob, his mother, meant well, but she persuaded him to make a wrong decision. And what's kind of interesting, and why a lot of people don't like that marshmallow experiment that we showed you right now, is people focus on the part where it says the kids who had won and didn't wait for the second marshmallow, they had a harder time at succeeding in life. But what people always forget to mention is the fact that the whole purpose of that experiment was to see if they could help the kids wait longer for the marshmallow. If you spoke to the kids, if you distracted them, you had them focus on something else other than that marshmallow that was right in front of them, they were able to wait for that second marshmallow. But in our lives, there are people who will tell us to rush for whatever it is that we want, to get it whatever way you want it. And because of that, we end up with something that wasn't what God had originally intended for us. Or we have what God intended for us, but not the way that he intended it. And we look at Jacob in Genesis 27, 8 through 10. It says, "Now my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out from your flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." So in these verses, we see Jacob's mother telling him to deceive his father, to do what was necessary to get the blessing, ultimately leading to all of those examples that we just read of the fruits of disobedience that Jacob experienced in his life. Abraham was another person who experienced the desire to rush for what he wanted, but we see that God was merciful to him. A lot of times we have in mind certain goals, we have these promises that God has in mind for us, but we want to achieve it by our own means. And I am the perfect example of this. Whenever I want something done, my mom has to always tell me, "Nina, calm down. Wait. I always want to do things right away. I want to rush, I want to get things done." And she has to always tell me, just wait a second, you know? And what's crazy is God promises us things. He promises us incredible things. And just like my mom, God is telling us, wait. Wait for his time. Wait for whatever he has in mind. I went the week before graduation, and I gave him my application, and I told them that I was trying to graduate. I saw one of my supervisors, and he said to me, "Oh, like you're planning to graduate for that graduation? Don't you know that we're having the graduation ceremony in like this next week?" I think it was something like the next day or something like that. Like, how are you intending to graduate if literally the graduation is tomorrow? It was something along those lines. And I, still in faith, said, you know what, I'm going to try. So I tried. I gave my application. I ended up missing the graduation just like my supervisor had told me. Then I went back and I was really hopeful that this application went through because, again, I felt as though I was qualified enough, and I went to my college, which is a very big college and kind of disorganized, and they told me that they lost my application. They literally lost my application. No one looked at it, no one saw it, the graduation date had passed, there was no way for me to graduate. And I had accepted at that point that I would have to sit and take a 3-credit science class. I cried in the stairwell because I did not want to take a science class. And I had doubted that God would provide for me. And what ended up happening was, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was that like I thought I knew that God had promised this to me, or I just wanted to keep trying, but I tried again and again and again. And I think it was in January my graduation went through. And my graduation went through as a December 2016 grad. So God had given me exactly what he had promised, just on his time zone, like literally how he wanted to do it. And I hope I'm not putting Shereen on the spot, but she had originally wanted to go to Queen's College or go to Baruch. And she was originally rejected from these colleges when she appealed. And we were thinking, you know, okay, she was rejected. God had promised her this and she didn't get it. Okay, you know, let's move on. Maybe she has to go dorm at John Jay, which no one wants to do. But we didn't know what to do. But I remember she spoke to Samuel too, and he told her to pray. Pray for God to work in that situation. And she wrote an appeal letter to Queen's College, and she will be going to Queen's College in fall. So again, that's another example of how we might have thought that was late, like, God, why couldn't you just accept me right away, you know? But God's timing is different, God's ways are different, and he has a purpose in that. Now God got to be glorified through that story, you know? God is never late. We see that Abraham eventually received his child. And I shared some examples of people who couldn't wait, they doubted God, but God was still merciful, things still happened. Maybe they experienced fruits of their disobedience, but God was still good. But there is also amazing things we can learn from someone who follows what God had intended. And we can look at Joseph. Despite every circumstance and everything that he had to go through, he trusted God's promise in his life. So we see in Genesis 37, when he was very young, Joseph was given a promise from God. I think all of us have a unique promise and a unique thing that God has in mind for us. And Joseph had a dream that God had given him. But when he told this dream to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." He had a promise from God that his brothers would bow down to him. We see that regardless of what happened to Joseph, regardless of the trials he went through, he was sold into slavery. He was a slave in Egypt. He was Potiphar's servant. And eventually when he was in Potiphar's house, he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He was put into prison. And in all of these circumstances, I couldn't find an example of him complaining or lamenting. And eventually, he became the cupbearer to the king, and God provided exactly what he said he would provide in that dream when he was a child. God provided exactly what he said he would provide to him back when he was a child. So my invitation to you is, it is hard to wait on God. We are impatient. We're a society that wants our marshmallow right now, and we don't want to seek his counsel. But I believe it is much harder to reap the fruits of disobedience in our life, to settle for something else that is not God's will or provision in our lives because we do not want to wait. So whatever your heart's desire, whatever God has promised to you, I want you to operate in God's standard time zone. We need to remember that you must run your own individual race. Do not be entangled or get upset because of your impatience. And I want to finish off by reading Hebrews 12, 1 through 2. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and our sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." God has promises for you. He has different things he wants from your life. He has a race set out before you specifically. Will we go? Will we be patient? Will we operate in God's standard time? May God bless you. So that's it. Sorry that the video got interrupted halfway through, just things happen. And yeah, I hope that it was encouraging to you. And watch out for a video on Wednesday. Another one will be up. I'm going to be doing my closet essentials, a little bit of fashion thrown in a little bit there. So watch out for that. Check out my blog. Hopefully have one up this week. I need to figure out something to write. Okay, I'm talking too much. Bye. You took it?
Go. So the camera goes with you. Changing angles. Keep me interactive.
Okay, can I record an outro?
Okay.
I am recording a video. Let me try again.